It has been a while. A long time. Yes, I'm saying that a month is a really long time. But before we start this video, I gotta give a shout out to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm a huge NFL fan. I hope they make the playoffs. I hope they actually win. No disrespect. But, alright, now let's actually get into the video. Because my stupid eye won't shut up. We're actually going to react into some really good videos. Scary videos. Horse Shorts Party and Llama, whatever. Yeah, but you know, again, another shout out to Corey Kitchen. You actually inspired me to be a YouTuber, man. Thank you, bro. I'm a samurai, so you know. And he didn't do anything that she said, bro. Fake. Alright, let's start with that. Sorry that I put on my tablet. Bro, I'm walking
Was married to Paul for several years. He was my second husband, far better than my first. He was loyal and also had a kid of his own, which was his 20-year-old daughter, Sarah. I moved into his house, and the three of us lived together quite happily, and even had a dog named Arlo. Everything was great, but that all changed one night when the three of us went to see a movie. We saw a cheesy horror flick about an Ouija board. It was scary, but I didn't think it was that good. Paul, however, was oddly enamored by the concept. All I knew is that a few days later, Paul came home with an Ouija board. That evening, me and Sarah entertained Paul's fixation on the Ouija board and held a phony seance. Needless to say, nothing really happened, and Sarah and I never thought twice about getting the board out. However, the same couldn't be said for Paul. He tried to hide it. He tried to hide it, but I could tell he was getting obsessed. He would crawl out of bed in the middle of the night. Then I'd find him in the dining room alone with the Ouija board, mumbling and asking it questions. Whenever I asked him about it later, he always denied ever doing anything with it. I was too scared to confront him in the act, as I didn't know how he would react if I interrupted him. And ever since Paul started messing with that board, weird freaky shit started happening in the house. I couldn't tell if I was getting in my own head, but even when I was the only person in the house, I no longer felt alone. Then, one morning, things took a disturbing turn for the worse. Our dog Arlo suddenly went missing. Paul said he must have ran away, but that didn't feel like something Arlo would ever do. We went looking for him all day, calling animal shelters and posting on Facebook to see if anyone had found him, but we didn't have any luck. That night, the pressure that had been building between Paul and I finally blew up in our faces.
God, I can't do this anymore. We've been looking for hours.
What? There's still daylight left. Are you just gonna give up? I knew you didn't care about Arlo. You let him out, didn't you?
I did not. I love him just as much as you do. I'm just tired.
I bet you were sick of taking care of him, so you pawned him off to someone else. How much money did you get for my dog, huh?
Shut up! I didn't sell him. Maybe it had something to do with you using that damn Ouija board. That's right. I've seen you up all night summoning evil shit into the house.
You've been spying on me? You bitch!
After our fight, Paul took the Ouija board and locked himself in the bedroom, leaving me to sleep on the couch. Luckily, Sarah slept in the living room with me. I think with everything that was happening, she didn't feel safe enough to sleep alone either. It stormed and poured all night. Then in the morning, we went outside to find the rainwater had flooded the street in front of our house. Apparently, one of the drains had gotten clogged. But when workers from the city showed up to clear it, they found something that still sends chills down my spine. They found Arlo's dead body in there. It didn't take long to connect it back to Paul. He said the spirits from the Ouija board told him he had to take the dog out the night before. Then he hid the body in the storm drain. Paul was arrested and went to jail. Afterwards, I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to get rid of that goddamn Ouija board. It took a few weeks, but eventually, the curiosity got the better of us. Sarah and I took out and held the same kind of seance as before. We asked it questions about Paul and Arlo, but nothing made sense until we asked it about ourselves and what we should do in this situation. The board's answer was very simple. D-I-E. Naturally, we felt the most logical response would be to burn the demonic piece of junk to ash. So we prepared up the fireplace, doused it in lighter fluid, and set it ablaze among the pile of firewood. Sarah and I were still sleeping in the living room then, so we turned in for the night as we watched the board slowly burn. Sometime later, I woke up to the smell of smoke. That's when I opened my eyes, only to find that Sarah and I were both standing up in front of the fireplace, staring at the Ouija board, while the entire house was burning down around us. We both screamed at each other in terror. It was the last and only thing we were able to do before we passed out from the smoke. Later on, I woke up in the hospital. We both miraculously survived, but we had lost our house and everything in it. Not only that, but the police didn't believe us, and now they're charging us with arson. I don't know what kind of black magic that infernal board is imbued with, but it destroyed my entire family. This is downright one of the most disturbing Ouija board stories on the internet today. This incident allegedly happened in 2014, when Paul Carroll was trying to summon the dead using an Ouija board. However, in the aftermath of playing the game, he believed he accidentally put an evil spirit into the family dog. As a result from this, Carroll then took out the dog and dumped its remains in an outside drain, resulting in a backup. When workers were brought in to address the issue,
This took place 2 years ago, and I can still recall every moment in almost perfect detail. It was nearing the end of school. Everyone was on their way to their last period, which for me was history, a class that I not only wasn't good at, but I also disliked the teacher, and at that point I honestly had no motivation of even showing up. So, ultimately, I decided to ditch and hide out in one of the bathroom stalls located near the very back of the school. Almost no one went back there, so I figured no one would find out anyway. I was in the furthest back stall, playing some game on my phone, when the ear-deafening sound of the principal coming over the intercom made me jump.
Lockdown, lockdown. This is an emergency alert. Please follow lockdown procedures. Go into the nearest room or building, lock the door, and turn off all lights.
It was a lockdown announcement, though I honestly didn't pay it any attention, considering they were all practice, and so I just continued to sit there in the stall and wait. But just then, all the lights to the building seemingly shut off all at once. The hum of the light faded, along with the buzzing of the AC unit, which meant all the power to the school had been cut off. The bathroom had gone pitch black, and that's when I was actually starting to get worried. Power was never cut off during practice lockdown drills. I texted my friend asking him what was going on, and literally right away he answered back with a text saying, "Dude, where are you? It's a real lockdown. Everyone's asking where you are." I told him I was in the bathroom, and he responds saying I should hide, but where else could I go? I wasn't just gonna run out into the hallway to find a better spot, so ultimately I decided to stay and hide in the stall I was in. I turned my phone's brightness down and texted my friend again. I asked him what the reason was for the lockdown, and after 5 long minutes of waiting, he replied saying that apparently there was a kid armed with a knife banging on classroom doors and asking to be let in. Both my classroom and the bathroom I was in were on the same floor, so I turned off my phone and tried my best to see if I could hear anything. There were running footsteps, and that was shortly followed by the sound of the bathroom door opening. I was absolutely horrified at what I was hearing. Whoever entered walked towards the stall next to me, went inside, and shut the door. I held my breath for what seemed like forever. Then, to break the silence, in a shaky voice, I said, "Who's in here?" It was silent for a second, and then I heard a voice reply with,
I'm just looking for a place to hide. I heard there was a lockdown over the speakers.
That didn't really answer my question, but the guy sounded around my age, and so I decided I'd just let it go. We sat in silence for what seemed like forever, when finally we got another announcement telling all students to exit the school in an orderly fashion through the front doors, where cops would be waiting outside. I exited the stall, but was surprised to see the guy next to me didn't. I asked him if he was coming, and he replied saying,
Yeah man, just give me a couple minutes.
I thought that was weird, but regardless, I left the bathroom and started heading towards the front exit of the school. As I was walking, my phone went off. My friend had texted me. He said that apparently a kid who was maybe a couple years older than us tried to rob a nearby gas station at knife point. The guy actually stabbed a couple people, and when he was unsuccessful in getting any money, he ran to hide in our school to blend in as one of the students. But what horrified me the most was the last sentence. My friend said that the cops outside were saying that the kid was still inside, and that he was hiding somewhere in the back of the school. Reading this changed my walk to the front doors into a full-on sprint. Right as I got outside, I would frantically inform one of the police officers of what I had experienced. And after they searched the bathroom, they found it was empty, but that the window inside was broken. The kid had broken and escaped through the window. Needless to say, for the next few school days, I had gotten a lot of unwanted attention because of what I had experienced. As far as I know, the kid still hasn't been caught, and it's still just difficult for me to come to terms with the fact that I was unknowingly hiding in a stall right next to the guy I was trying to hide from. I somewhat recently got my first real job as a teacher at a public elementary school in a nearby neighborhood. It was the first school year I was teaching, and at this point it was only September, so needless to say, I was still learning the ropes. It was honestly pretty stressful. I teach a first grade class of around 20 kids, so you can imagine how chaotic it would get at times, especially with my lack of experience. I remember one day, I was in the middle of assigning the kids a worksheet for spelling simple words when the principal's voice came over the school's loudspeaker and ordered a lockdown. Now, being a new teacher, I wasn't yet informed of when the school had practiced lockdown drills around the year. Therefore, I had no idea if this was a drill or not. But I knew either way I had to follow protocol. I turned off the room's lights, locked the doors and windows, and had the kids sit against the walls out of sight. I'd say maybe 5 minutes passed of complete silence when I could faintly start to hear doors being banged on down the hall. I could feel my heart start to race as the sounds got louder as whoever was banging on the doors got closer. At this point, I still had no idea whether it was just the principal checking all the classroom locks or an actual intruder in the school. But my thoughts were interrupted by one of my students bursting out crying. It was too loud. There's no doubt whoever was outside would have been able to hear it. I could tell. The banging outside stopped in response to the noise, shortly after followed by a single pair of footsteps walking up to the door. It was silent for a few seconds, but the silence was quickly broken by a male's voice yelling out,
Hey guys, I think there's kids in this one.
and that confirmed this lockdown was real. More footsteps could be heard running up to the door, and that's when genuine attempts to break down the door were made by multiple people. At that point, not a single kid in the class wasn't crying or screaming in fear. I didn't know what to do. I was never trained for this kind of situation. And that's when 2 gunshots could be heard. But it didn't come from the intruders. Police were now inside the building. Right after the shots were fired, the intruders could be heard running down the hall. 30 minutes later, and we were given the all clear. It turns out the intruders were 3 local high school students. They were eventually caught, but when asked why they did it, they would say close to nothing. Although, one of the kids claimed it was a bet, but personally I don't believe that for a second. No bet is worth going to court over, and even possibly losing your freedom. I firmly believe they had much worse intentions. Although most likely traumatized, luckily no one was physically hurt. The shots that were fired by the police were claimed to have been warning shots, and were aimed directly into the ground. It's been 2 years since this all happened, and I still teach first grade at the same school and even in the same classroom. And to this day, those bullet holes can still be seen in the school's hallway. This happened back when I was in middle school. Technically, it was actually my last day in middle school. It was late May, and for our last day, our school would do a sort of field day where the whole school would play a bunch of games to celebrate the end of the school year. Now, back then, I used to be a pretty active kid, but unfortunately, due to a recent concussion, I was unable to participate in any games the whole day. I was pretty disappointed, yeah, though I did bring my DS and quickly opted to just sit inside one of the classrooms and play that, as, I mean, there wasn't really anything else I could do. None of the teachers seemed to mind, so there I was, all by myself in the classroom for my science class playing my DS. All the while the other kids got to play games in the school's gymnasium. It was a weird feeling being in that classroom alone. I don't really know how to explain it. I mean, up until that point, I don't think I'd ever been in a classroom completely alone. Something that needs to be mentioned is that the teachers that weren't watching the kids in the gymnasium were in a room across the hall having meetings. I'd say I was playing on my DS for not even an hour when my English teacher, Miss Allen, rushed up to the classroom's door and closed it from the outside. She didn't say anything to me, so I figured she just wanted to make sure I couldn't hear whatever the teachers were talking about across the hall. Forgetting about it, I went back to playing my DS. A couple minutes later, the classroom's door swung open. I expected to see one of the teachers coming in to check on me, but no, a man I'd never seen before walked into the room and closed the door behind him. The guy had to have at least been in his 50s, and so I just assumed it was some kid's dad. It wasn't unusual for parents to come into the school to bring a student their lunch, so I asked if he was looking for someone. He replied with no, in a tone that seemed almost offended that I would even ask that question. Before I could say anything else, the guy started walking towards me. I asked him what he was doing, and that's when he lifted up his shirt, revealing a handgun on his waistband. He followed it up by saying, "Look, kid, I'm gonna need you to come with me, or I'm gonna kill you." The guy said it in the most carefree tone I had ever heard, and that along with the fact that I'd never even seen a gun in person before instantly overwhelmed me with pure fear. Before I could fully comprehend the danger of the situation I was in, the guy firmly grabbed my wrist and started pulling me towards the classroom door. But before we got into the hallway, the deafening sound of our school's lockdown alarm started going off. This was followed by the guy instantly letting go of my wrist and making a run for it down the hall and through a back exit. I stood there in shock for a second, but ultimately went back inside the classroom. I'm not sure how much time had passed when Miss Allen came back into the room and told me that she didn't want to scare me, but that there had been an intruder inside the building and a lockdown, which now was over, had taken place. I would tell her about the man, and instantly she brought me to a police officer who was already on the premises to explain what I had experienced. It turns out the man was the whole reason the school went into lockdown in the first place. The man was reported to have been scoping out the school all morning, and when he was seen getting close to the building itself, someone would call the police, which resulted in the lockdown. The guy was later caught, and would openly admit that he had been trying to scare kids into getting into his car so he could kidnap them. And this reality still horrifies me to this day. Not a day goes by where I'm not thankful for the school's alarm going off when it did. School lockdowns can be some of the most terrifying things you can experience. The general fear of what's going to happen next is very overwhelming for a lot of people, sometimes even if it's just a drill. In this video, we'll be going over 3.
We would like to thank Gin Rummy Stars for sponsoring this video. Gin Rummy Stars can be played anywhere at any time on iOS.
We take millions of them every
With these ads, I might as well just...
largest selection of loose diamonds in
Now who's talking, bud? I don't want to buy the stuff that you want me to buy, you know? Get out my face.
A family business you can trust.
Boy.
On iOS and Android devices. Here's how to play. Each player is dealt 10 cards. Collect sets and runs and try to avoid the extra cards, which count as deadwood. Getting a knock is game over for your opponent. Download Gin.
Terrence Nicholson, like that.
Look up! Камера снимает! Вы чё? Куда зашли? Расскажите сюда! Я? Снимаем, поехали! Снимаем, поехали! Что делаете? Сейчас, подожди! Бабушка, ты что делаешь? Останови машину! Не буду остановить!
This next story was inspired by this disturbing dashcam footage showcasing two men with bats attempting to rob the driver. In the background, you can see them utilize their vehicle to create a blockade so that oncoming drivers would have no choice but to encounter the bandits. The driver was eventually able to narrowly escape on the side of the road. The basic plot of the story is pretty self-explanatory, so we decided to do a mashup with the notorious creature from Jeepers Creepers. There's been several conspiracy videos online showcasing alleged footage of the phenomenon, but we'll leave it up to you to decide if it's fact or fiction. I was hours away from any major city, miles from the nearest paved road and deep into a remote rural region of my county that I'm sure most so-called locals don't even know exists. And on top of everything else, I'd gotten on the road later than I planned to, which meant darkness was setting in. I got word that my great-uncle had passed away and I knew I had to go visit the homestead for the burial. His surviving wife was quite elderly and their offspring would need taking care of everything for a few days. Unfortunately, I didn't have a passenger to share these experiences with on my drive out to their house in the plains. It was just me and my car with the endless expanses of field and pastures all around me, and of course my radio music. I knew I was close to getting there when I started navigating the muddy dirt roads. However, on this trip, I didn't feel quite the same benevolence I was used to. After enough time, the setting sun disappeared and gave way to darkness. It was right about then, at the end of that train of thought, when I started to wonder what had really been the cause of my great-uncle's death. However, I didn't get much time to ponder this. I'd just come over a slight hill when my headlights fell over a blue van parked cockeyed in the middle of the road. There was no way to go around them without trampling through somebody's property and potentially screwing up my car. At first, it seemed obvious that they had broken down, whoever they were. But as I got closer, I wasn't so sure. Still, I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt, that maybe they'd pushed it out into the road to get my attention. So I slowed down to a crawl and tried to gather more information. That's when the two men who'd been driving the van appeared from inside it, holding two baseball bats and making quick strides toward my car before I even came to a complete stop. I felt my heart jump and my pulse quicken in one of those immediate fight-or-flight responses. I could tell with certainty that whatever motive these guys had didn't matter, because they were clearly desperate, and I mean dangerously desperate, with that glossy animalistic look in their eye that tells you they aren't acting like human beings right now. They even looked like they'd been attacked by wild animals, with their clothes bloody and torn. I made sure that my windows were up and my doors were locked. I gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles and grounded the brakes, trying to think of a way out as they poked and prodded my car for a way in.
Let us in! Come on, open up!
Please, please let us in! We've been out here for 2 days! We won't survive another day out here!
Open the damn door now!
I wasn't sure what to do, but I knew the last thing I wanted was to let these guys inside my car. I shook my head at them and began to slowly back away, hoping that they would somehow remain calm and wait for someone else. But they were the first people I'd seen on that entire road.
Where are you going? Let us in or we'll all die! Stop! Stop! Open the car or we will open it ourselves!
One of them quickly ran behind my car and got in my way. The panic in my brain told me to just floor it and run them down, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. After trying to maneuver around them in reverse didn't work, I saw an opening forward and put the car in drive, throttling as quickly as I dared and just barely managing to get around the van without wrecking or trapping my car. Ahead of them, I could still see the two men chasing after me in my rearview mirror, tripping in the darkness, homing in on the brake lights. I didn't even think about stopping for them, but I drove on cautiously into the night just to avoid any poorly timed driving mistakes. However, I kept checking my rearview mirror for them, just to see how desperate they were to get at me. I was about 100 feet away from them when I decided I'd check one last time, and that's when I saw something that made so little sense I had to stop and try to process it. There they were, the two of them, haggard and bloody, hobbling towards me with their bats when all of a sudden, with a single flash of something slipping by from the field to the tree line at an inhuman speed, one of them was gone. Immediately, I stopped and watched the other man react to this. He screamed. Then, his wary hobble turned into a full-on sprint, with which he closed the distance between us in a matter of seconds. He collided with my car once more, striking the windows harder than ever. Before I could think to get going again, he was climbing onto the hood of my car.
Let me in, for the love of God, please! Don't let me die out here!
And right as I thought I should heed his words, I heard footsteps pounding the earth with hellish speed. And then that man's screaming was cut short. That's when I saw the man slide down the glass with his head split down the middle, spilling the torn pieces of his brain down through the rest of his severed body as it was ripped in two. And behind the two pieces of the man which fell out of sight, shrouded in impossible darkness, was the creature that had done it. Now the only thing left in the road, staring at me through the glass of my windshield. Its haunting red eyes pierced my soul with ease. What it was, I can't even describe. It was as though my brain wouldn't even allow me to fully comprehend the horrific sight of it. Though from what I could tell, it was the shape of a human wearing a cowboy hat, along with a rugged trench coat. I slammed the gas pedal to the floor and plowed over the remains of that man's body and straight through whatever that horrible thing was, only to then have it jump on the hood of my car. It began banging its head on my windshield as I attempted to shake it off with a dozen sharp turns on the dirt road.
Ah! Somebody help! Get the hell out of my windshield, you asshole!
That's when the man, or thing, flew off to the side of the road as I sped off into the night. I couldn't see any signs of that thing in my rearview mirror. I wasn't too far from my relative's homestead, but those last few dozen miles were fraught with a degree of anxiety and fear I'd never felt before. When I saw my relatives, they did their best to console me, but they didn't believe what I had told them. They rather bitterly excused it as the tricks of grief upon the mind. And even when I showed them the damage that had been done to my car, and all the blood splattered on the hood, they again tried to convince me that I simply hit a large animal like a deer or a bear, and that I was going crazy over the trauma of the whole situation. After my great-uncle's burial the next day, I forced my family to go out to the stretch of road where it all had happened. But somehow, there was nothing there. No van, no bodies, no creature, just mud. I don't know how to explain all of this, but the fact that his land is stalked by some predator from the depths of hell that seems to be able to cover its tracks like this makes me highly doubt that my great-uncle died of a simple brain tumor, because his gouged out eyes tell me otherwise.
I slammed the gas pedal to the floor and plowed over the
Royal Giant Masterclass. First tip, never go alone. Giant in front, archers in back. Classic combo. He smashes, they snipe.
I wasn't too far from my relative's homestead, but those last few dozen miles were fraught with anxiety and fear I never felt before. When I saw my relatives, they did their best to console me, but they didn't believe what I had told them. They rather bitterly excused the tricks of grief upon the mind. And even when I showed them the damage that had been done to my car, and all the blood...
That's basically it for tonight, and don't forget, always come on Scary Night Fridays. Scary Night Fridays. I will see you guys next Friday. And yes, I miss you guys. It has been, what, like, that one that I made like a month ago was like not even like, yeah, that was like just showing you guys. But the last one that I actually made and talked to y'all was like 3 months ago. Like, that was maybe even like 6. But yeah, so I'm finally showing y'all my face, and don't forget, come back!